Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're diving into a challenge that, let's be honest, is on every leader's mind right now. How do you go from just tinkering with AI to actually building real, lasting value with it? Well, the secret is all in how you design your AI portfolio.
And let's start with this question right here, because it gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Think about it. So many companies are busy with AI. You've got dozens of projects, countless pilots, there is a ton of motion. But is all that activity actually going anywhere? Is it building on itself? Is it creating real momentum?
And this quote just nails it. Without a real strategy, AI efforts tend to pop up all over the place. One team tries this, another team tries that, vendors are pitching you 100 different things, and what happens? Everything becomes fragmented. Your resources get spread way too thin, and nothing gets the focus it needs to actually scale up and make a difference.
And that leads you right here to this exact state: motion without momentum. You've got all this visible activity, which looks great on a report, but there's very little scalable value being created that actually moves the needle for the business. Honestly, it's the difference between running on a treadmill and actually running a race. So what's the fix? The key is to make a huge strategic shift. As a leader, you've got to stop thinking about just greenlighting individual AI projects. Instead, you need to start managing a coordinated, strategic portfolio of investments. And trust me, that's not just playing with words. It's a completely different way of thinking.
And here's what that portfolio looks like. It's a framework built on 3 really distinct layers. Down at the bottom, you have the foundation. This is all about getting your organization ready. Then, in the middle, you've got the core, which is where you redesign work to get real, measurable value. And way up at the top is the frontier, where you start making those big, strategic bets on what's next.
All right, let's dig into that base layer. The foundation isn't about the flashy, headline-grabbing AI stuff. No, this is the essential, behind-the-scenes work that makes everything else possible. You can think of these as de-risking investments. They're the bedrock you have to build before you can do anything else.
And these foundational investments really come down to 4 main pillars. You need widespread AI literacy. You need sanctioned, safe tools for your teams. You need your data and, this is key, your knowledge to be ready. And you need some baseline governance and policy. The goal here isn't to be a differentiator, but to build consistency, create trust, and just stop the kind of big failures that can kill an AI strategy before it even starts.
Now pay close attention to this definition of AI literacy. It's not just about knowing which button to click. It's about a deep, shared understanding that these AI systems work on probability, not certainty. And that right there has massive implications for how you have to think about risk and where human judgment absolutely has to stay in the loop.
And here's a perfect and kind of painful real-world example of what happens when that literacy is missing. Air Canada had a chatbot that just confidently made up a fake refund policy. A customer took a screenshot, and a legal tribunal actually forced the airline to honor what the bot said. The failure wasn't really the AI's fault, it was a failure of the organization to understand where you need a human to verify and control what the AI is doing.
The next pillar, data readiness, has also totally changed. With modern AI, it's not just about having clean spreadsheets anymore. The real bottleneck is making your organization's operating knowledge, all its policies, procedures, and unwritten rules, readable by a machine. If all that logic only lives inside your experts' heads, you've got no chance of scaling automation safely. Okay, so once you have that solid foundation in place, we can move up to the core. This is where AI stops being a science project and starts becoming real operational leverage. The whole game here is about redesigning your most important workflows to create tangible, measurable business value.
I love this way of thinking about it. If you just slap some AI onto your old existing process, you're going to get tiny gains at best. The real goal in the core isn't just to automate, it's to completely re-engineer the work itself. You're not just paving a crooked dirt path, you're designing a brand new superhighway. Let's make this super concrete with a customer service example. Here's the old way of doing things, right? A human agent does everything. Classifying the ticket, digging up info, writing the response, documenting the case, escalating the hard stuff. It's totally linear and super labor-intensive. Now look at the redesigned workflow. The AI system just absorbs all the routine, predictable tasks. It handles the intake, drafts the easy responses, generates the case notes. So what does the person do? Well, their role completely evolves. They become an exception handler, a quality overseer. They apply their judgment where it actually matters. Now that is real transformation. And that brings us to the top of the pyramid, the most forward-looking part of the portfolio, the frontier.
Let's be clear, these initiatives are not about making today's operations a little bit better. These are your big, strategic bets that explore how AI could fundamentally change your business model, your products, maybe even your entire industry.
To make this real, just look at what Stripe and OpenAI are doing together. They're making it possible for AI agents to handle a purchase from start to finish right inside a conversation. Now, that's not just a new buy button. That is a bet that the very nature of commerce could shift away from websites towards transactions that are handled entirely by AIs. That's a frontier level bet.
So the takeaway here is that you have to manage your core and frontier investments completely differently. Core projects, they're justified by ROI. They improve what you already do. Frontier projects, on the other hand, are about creating strategic options and exploring entirely new ways of doing business. You actually expect and plan for a higher failure rate because you're paying to learn about the future.
Now, a really critical point. This portfolio is not something you set up once and then forget about. It has to be alive, it has to be dynamic. You have to be constantly rebalancing your investments across these 3 layers based on how mature your organization is becoming. You have to make sure your ambition lines up with your actual readiness. So, for a company that's just getting started, the portfolio probably looks something like this. The huge majority of your effort, like 60%, is just pouring concrete for that foundation, getting literacy, governance, and data right. You'll have a few targeted core projects, but almost nothing on the frontier. You have to earn the right to play there.
But then, as your organization starts to mature, that allocation shifts pretty dramatically. Investment in the core grows a ton because now you're finally ready to drive that measurable value and re-engineer big parts of the business. The foundational work, well, that becomes more about just keeping the lights on.
And then for a really advanced organization, the mix changes again. The foundation is rock solid, the core engine is humming, and now you have the capacity and the wisdom to make much bigger, smarter bets on the frontier. You can dedicate a serious chunk of your portfolio to actually shaping what comes next. And that really brings us to the most important point of all. When you manage AI this way, thoughtfully, strategically, it stops being about just approving a random list of projects. It becomes a single, coherent, intentional act of leadership. It's about deciding where you are today and then deliberately shaping where your organization is going to be tomorrow. And that leads us to this final and maybe most profound question. This whole portfolio approach, it's not really about technology in the end, is it? It's about people. As AI starts to handle more and more of the routine work, what do our people become accountable for? What is the new work of our teams?
Answering that question, that is the true work of leadership in this new era of AI. And thinking about your AI initiatives as a balanced, living portfolio is the first and most critical step on that journey. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.